In the introduction, first thing what happens, you receive correspondence from ECSA, and they tell you, listen here, you are invited to an interview. So you got different types of interview. We'll talk about that just now. Then what do you think in your mind? You say, hey, what must I do? Now, this is a problem that I find with a lot of the people applying. So you have to know your types of interviews that you may encounter during your application. Okay. And then also, which ECSA document must you consult? There is a document that you can use. Then you'll say, okay, I get an experience appraisal interview. What must I do there? Then you don't know what it means. Then you get a professional review interview. It's very different from an experience appraisal interview. And then you also get an advisory interview. The experience and the professional interview, appraisal interview and the professional interview, you are required to attend. Advisory is completely different. You will see in the end what I talk about. Okay, the types of interview you may encounter during your application. Okay, in your email from the ECSA administrator stating that you must attend an interview, the interview may be one of the following: experience appraisal interview, professional review interview, those are compulsory, then advisory interview, that is not compulsory. You will see why later. Next slide, Johan. Okay, which document must you consult? Okay, you've received this email. Now you need to know where to get your information about the interview. Okay, you can go onto the website under a document folder under heading item 2. You will find the following document. This is your RINT, which stands for Interview Guide 001 ECSA Registration Interviews Guide. So if you can't find that, below is your website that takes you to the documents folder, and under item 2 you will find this RINT Guide 001. Another thing I find what the guys or the applicants, when I do talk to them later in the advisory or later on, then there's another thing. You must not follow the advice of your colleague or colleagues or your friends before consulting the above ECSA document. This is very, very important. Once you've read this document and you've gone through it, you will understand, because sometimes the colleagues don't want you to become registered, and then they tell you another story. Here is the slide of the front page, the cover page of this document. They had revision 0. They haven't revised it yet. It was done in June 2020. It was put on later on the website, but this is a good guide. My talk is based on this guide. Next slide, Johan. Okay, now you get this experience interview. Now you say to yourself, all right, I've been invited for the experience interview. Now your first thought that goes through your mind: what is the experience interview and what is the purpose? Now the purpose of an experience interview is to determine if the evidence information supplied was insufficient for the assessors to make a clear decision. What this means is, what you've written there, as an assessor, I am not be able to make a decision to say, yes, you have covered this outcome or not. And you've just left it there and it's not clearly written. So you say, let's ask them to come and discuss this. Because sometimes, we get limited writing skills, but we can explain better in orally. So, okay. Now, this is a big question that you have to do. A lot of the applicants, they come into this interview unprepared. So what you do is, when you get this invitation from the ECSA administrator, you firstly acknowledge the receipt of the email that you received from ECSA's administrator. Then you study the email timelessly and note the outcomes. So please don't think if you get it a week or two before, now I'll do it quickly the evening before. It does not work so nicely. Then you make notes of the outcome or outcomes in question. So you might, for instance, have outcome 1, 2, 3, maybe 7 or something like that. You take those outcomes in your engineering report, you read through it and you say, I see where I made mistake. I understand why they don't understand. But when you're doing that, you read your ECSA policy document R02, standard STA PEPTPN. I've highlighted PT, but PN is professional engineer, PT is professional technologist, PN is professional technician. Just remember what I'm talking here about these interviews, exactly the same for a professional engineer, professional technologist, and a professional technician. But you must also, in conjunction with R02, you read ECSA's guidelines R08 CS, Guide for PEPTPN. These two documents are one of your critical documents to help you with your application, but also to help you to understand where you might have left out information. Okay, now, once you've got that, you appraise your submitted document, as I said previously, your engineering report, against the two above mentioned documents. So you read through and see what is required in those outcomes and see if you have covered them or you have not covered them correctly, but you make notes. Then you prepare yourself for the outcomes in question. Those are the outcomes, for instance, 1, 2, and 3, and 9 and 10, something like that, or 7. You prepare with your answers, and that helps us as assessors or interviewers for experience appraisal interview. When you're prepared, you come in, you say, yes, I think this is what I made a mistake here, but this is how I'm doing. Then it helps us a lot to see, yes, you're on the right track or what, and it will help. But you must have enough evidence to pass the experience appraisal stage to proceed to the professional review stage. So, if you can prove to us those outcomes or whatever is short and explain, it will be fine. Then you can go to your professional review stage. But remember one thing, do not make this mistake. Yes, I've passed the experience appraisal stage. Now the professional review stage will be easy. Remember, the experience appraisal stage is only on certain outcomes. Professional review stage, it's on all 11 outcomes. Now, I've written below there, and this you must remember. Remember, you must prepare for this interview. If you're not prepared, you might make it or you might get a problem. It depends on you. But if you're prepared and we can see you're prepared, it makes our jobs also easier to do our appraisal. Okay, here it is. What is the preparation for experience appraisal interview in that document? There is what I've discussed. And if you read the applicants who provide sufficient evidence at this stage and pass the EA, which is the experience appraisal stage, will be invited to the PR, which is a professional review stage. Okay. All right. Now you've now passed your you've passed your experience appraisal interview. Now you're going to your professional review stage. Now this is your next stage. Now the main purpose of this interview, as I said, is to demonstrate to the panel, which can consist of 3 to 2 people. If the third one, you will get a choice to being asked, can you Will you agree to have 2 reviewers? If you say yes, if you say no, then they reschedule the time to have 3. That your engineering experience satisfies all 11 outcomes as stated in the ECSA policy document, RO2, and in ECSA guide, or RO8. That is RO8, not RO2, sorry, but it should be RO8. So if you can prove to us there, then you will become registered. Next slide, Johan. Now we're going to go to the preparation. So it's the same as with your experience interview, assessment interview. You acknowledge the email that you received from the ECSA administrator. Then what you must do is you must review the application document carefully, and if there's any outcomes that may need more attention, what happens is you might have got maybe 1 outcome. We're not going to call you in for an interview just for 1 outcome. We will just highlight it and say, please look at that. So now you got the 10 outcomes, but now maybe outcome 2 is a bit of worrisome that we couldn't do the proper. So you go and read that and prepare, but you prepare for all 11 outcomes, but then you emphasize also on the outcome that is a bit of a problem. Okay, you refer to ECSA policy and also the ECSA guideline, which is the RO2 and the RO8 document. And please do not forget to read ECSA Code of Conduct for a registered person and also the latest Engineering Professional Act. These are quite important there to read. They've also bring out the other one, not the Code of Conduct that is to do there with professional, but you must look at all the documents. But those two that I mentioned are very important to read. Now, they tell you also you must do a PowerPoint presentation. Okay, a lot of people haven't got PowerPoint, but you can also use a similar program, or you can put it out onto slides. For instance, in PDF, you do PowerPoint and put it on PDF. That is also acceptable, but it must be a presentation. Now you must cover all 11 outcomes as required. Now, I usually tell the people, the applicants, the guideline for your presentation. Your introduction, you only use 2 minutes for that. You got 15 minutes. Go back, Johan. Yes, stand there. Okay, your introduction is only 2 minutes. You tell about your academic achievements and your career path. That's it. You tell it short and sweet. Don't talk about your different TERs and that. Do not waste time. Because you only got 15 minutes, you can push it to 20 minutes. Then you discuss your 11 outcomes. You got 12 minutes. If you're working on a 15-minute cycle. Then your conclusion is a 1 minute. That's it. You can push it, maybe your 11 outcomes to make a total of 20 minutes. You might push it to 15 to 17 minutes, but do not go over that. If you're well prepared, it will show that you are confident in your presentation and you know what you're doing. But when you're doing your presentation, talk technical terms. Don't talk a lot of yellow pages, as I call it, just to fill up the slides. So another thing, rehearse your presentation, time it, and make sure, record it also, to make sure that you are talking properly and people will be able to hear how you do. And also you must understand the requirements of all 11 outcomes. That's where you go back to your RO2 and your RO8. This is where it talks about here. It comes out of the document that I said, the registration interview guide. There's your 11 outcomes. If you look there, you have to demonstrate how their engineering experience to date satisfies the 11 ECSA competency outcomes. So you must prove to us your competency at the level of, for technician, it is well-defined engineering activity. For technologists, there's a broadly defined engineering activity. And for professional engineer, it's a complex engineering activity. That is just further on this next page where it tells you, if you read the second bullet, prepare a 15-minute PowerPoint presentation on topics covered in the application by providing in-depth description of activities. Another thing too is, and this you must also take note, your engineering report might have been written 6 months ago, or even a bit longer, because sometimes it does happen, but you've done a new project in the meantime, which you see will be more fitting to discuss your 11 outcomes. You're allowed to use that. Remember, your engineering report is not cast in stone. If you say, yes, this other project I'm doing does cover my 11 outcomes, it is more appropriate, you're allowed to use that. Okay, now we come to the advisory, the 2 experience, appraisal interview, and the peer review. Those are compulsory. Sometimes it does happen that you can go from your experience appraisal assessment, you get recommendation to go to peer review, your professional review interview. It can happen. Okay, the purpose of an advisory interview is to seek advice for shortcomings in the outcomes that were mentioned in your refusal of registration. So that can happen in your period where you do, for instance, your experience appraisal interview, where you might have to discuss all 10 outcomes. It's not written well in your report, and you do not show competency to move on to the next stage. You can get refusal, or after you have done your professional review interview, you can get refusal of registration. So there is the first thing you can do. You must request for or we say you must, but you decide if you want to have advisory. If you require it, you must request it if you require it. But you can also decide, I'm not going for advisory, I'm going to go appeal. Just be careful when you're doing appeal. You must make sure that you know what you're talking about. I always tell the people, rather go to advisory, hear what the person says. Usually it is 3 people at the advisory. There may be 1 person that was with you in the interview, and the other 2 have not been at the interview. It's advice seeking. Another thing, advisory interview cannot overturn the final outcome of what was said, either for your refusal of registration. Then ECSA will never give you formal feedback for the advisory interview. What it means by that is they will not give you a letter after the interview. You alone must make sure you take notes. Another thing, when you're seeking advice at advisory, it's not a mudslinging interview. So do not talk about your interview. Usually what the people at advisory will ask you, how did it go? Were you nervous? You answer yes or no, and then they will ask you about, going to the outcomes. Yeah, it is. Another thing too is what you must do at your advisory interview. Please, if you do get advisory, prepare for it with your questions, because you know which outcomes you didn't make. Because it will be discussing only those outcomes. We will not discuss the outcomes that you did make. For instance, if you did not make 2 or 3 outcomes, you can ask questions on that. So all what we've done now is just discuss the 3 types of interviews. You've got your experience appraisal interview and a professional review interview. These are compulsory for you to attend. And then we got the advisory where you can request it to attend. Next slide. And I just brought up this cover page again to show where you can get this document. This is how the document looks. All right, I've come to the end of the presentation. Now we're going to do a bit of, before we take questions, there's the iPad services and groups that we do for free. So iPad phone for messages and WhatsApp is 073 336 2471. Please note, iPad does not answer this phone. All what they do is they take the messages and then you put it on your different groups that you request. So when you do on a WhatsApp or a SMS, please state your name and say which group you want to go on to there. All right, we also got the iPad website is www.ipad.org.za. iPad stands for Institute of Professional Engineering Technologists. And then you can go onto the website and see the different classes of registration. Okay. iPad also gives registration advice for free. It's extra registration. This is the website, but you can also request it on the WhatsApp or on the message group to join that group. But as I said, state your name and state which group you want to go. Then we also got on the website, on the WhatsApp there, we've got the iPad job portal for free engineering job adverts. There are jobs that are advertised, and if you want to put a job on, you can also put a job if you're looking for people to work. Then the last one is all my videos that it's been done, and also what Johanna's done and other colleagues of mine have done. And there's also CPD points registration there that you can do. And it's on HTTPS front slash, but don't put in www, just put in professionalcpd.co.za. There it will give you all the talks there. Just remember, this one will take about a week and a half to go onto the group, onto that tutorial, because it gets edited and then Johan van Schalkwyk puts it on the website. Next slide, Johan.
Chris, I'd just like to make some comments here. First of all, I've fallen a bit behind putting from the last webinar. We had some requests come through on that phone number to be put on groups, which I haven't been able to do because I had a lot of other very urgent stuff to do, unfortunately. So if one of you have done that, asked to put on a group, please bear with me, but go on to these links for the WhatsApp groups. Now, the registration advice group, the WhatsApp groups have a limit of 1,025 people. Now, the WhatsApp group for registration advice is full, so I started a new one, the second one, and I'm trying to, if there's discussion on the one, to copy it onto the other one so that people can join on see the same discussions. Unfortunately, as I said, I cannot go beyond 1,025 people because we are already there, and there's about 30 people there that applied to get on, but I cannot put them on because it's full. You know, you can't put, if you just can't put more people on if you like. So if you're one of those guys that's still waiting to be put on the group, please go to this WhatsApp group, the second one, and just join using this link. The job portal, there's there's still lots of space there, although there are 2 groups there as well. But I put the same job adverts on both of them, so you don't need to be on both. And
Johan?
as I said, the previous talks are put onto the Professional CPD website under graduate courses.
Johan, can you put those 2 chat groups just on the chat? I mean the links of the web there, just on the chat group. I mean on the chats.
Yeah.
There. If you just copy it, that the people can copy it down if they want.
Okay, I see what you mean.
Yeah. All right. Disclaimer. What I've read there, but I'm not going to repeat it. I said it at the beginning. Please, you must know, a lot of this stuff, what we do, we try and keep it as accurate as possible, but we do not sit in the interview for you. So it is up to you to decide how you go through the interview. And all what I tell the people that do come to me for interviews, relax, think about it. I know it's nerve-wracking. It was nerve-wracking with Johan there giving me the interview, but we relaxed in the end. But what you do is think about it. You're sitting at lunchtime and having coffee with your colleagues around the coffee table, and you're discussing a design, and then after you discuss the design, they ask you questions about that. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? If you get that mindset and you're prepared, and it's on the level that is required, you will make it. Okay. Okay, so we
Chris,
can take it
I'm
down.
going back to the previous slide, just so that you can copy that those links, because it's very difficult for me to copy it onto the chat. So I'm going to leave it there for 2 minutes. Yeah. And later on, I'll go back to it as well when we end the group, the discussion. Okay, I'm going to tell you now. I see this guy. I just want to open up. LeSean Zane asked, "Hi, Johan. I only have one question. Is it possible that after a professional review, so you did not satisfy 1 or 2 outcomes, that ECSA will send you a letter highlighting the specific outcomes you did not satisfy and they call you for another interview?" No. Because when you go up to a professional review, that is your last gate to climb over, or the last gate to open to become registered. If you haven't shown competency in that, then you will not go through. What we do is we also look at certain outcomes. There's some we call soft outcomes, some we call hard outcomes. All right, can we have this PowerPoint presentation sent to the group? You'll get this PowerPoint presentation on professionalcpd.co.za on that, but it will come in about a week and a half to 2 weeks' time. Any other questions? You can just ask any question that you want to in connection with the registration. Does not necessarily have to be for the interviews. Yes. So you can, anybody can ask any question they want to about the registration. I'm trying to get the... there's one... Melisi? Melisi, yeah.
Hi, Johan and everyone else. It's not necessarily a question, but it's just to say thank you for the presentation. It's very, very insightful and important. I am employed as a mechanical engineer, but I've got a BTech in mechanical engineering. And I've went through the ECSA registration process before and got deferred because of Group A, which is outcome 1, 2, 3, and then also outcome 9 and 10. Then also I requested for the advisory interview, where I feel it was of great assistance, very, very important. So for all people who are here who have been deferred, I would suggest you do take the advisory interview, because they do go through the points that made you not to get the PR. I went through the process of applying again and ensuring at work that I cover those outcomes. I did the interview again with ECSA on the 10th of October, so I'm still waiting for my outcome. But for everyone else in the team, this presentation is of great, great value, and I would suggest even those who attended to just go through again for the presentation when they have their interviews again. So to Johan and the team, thank you so much for this.
Okay, thank you. I just want to give a bit of advice for everybody. Remember outcome 1, 2, 3, 9, and 10. And I've always said that they are interlinked with each other. So if you take one project, make sure it is with 1, 2, 3, 9, and 10. Do not jump around with different projects. Stay with that project and make sure that you cover outcome 1, 2, 3, 9, and 10. Then you will be fine. The other outcomes, you can work through it. You can go through the way I've spoken about the other outcomes. Okay, Gusty, come in.
Chris, you said I can ask any question. Thanks for that. And thank you for the presentation. I just want to ask about the alternate route application. I am about to submit my application, and on the engineering report, I didn't fill in outcomes 1, 2, 3, and 4. But I did do the educational report. Is that correct? Chris, am I on the right line?
Your alternative route, usually what you do is you don't fill in 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, because you're going to go right at the back. You got the alternative route, the educational route. So you fill in 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Then you go back to your original engineering report, and you fill in from 6 to 11. Okay.
Okay. In the open spaces on the engineering report, I wrote there. This is refer to the education of the EDR, the educational report. Is that okay? If
Because then, that's fine, because you know why? Because I do a lot of moderations also. And then I find the assessors, they didn't go and look at the alternative route. We do get that there. And then I find they didn't do that. And I send it back as a moderator to tell them to re-evaluate it, to make sure that that is there. Because what happens is they see the outcome 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, for instance, and then they say, okay, now this person has got BTech, although they've written that he has not got BTech, he's going alternative. Then they tend to say, no, but he hasn't covered this outcome. If you look at your outcome 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 on the alternative route, it is got different questions. It comes to the same, but you have to answer those questions in the sense. I know what you understand what I'm talking about, Gusty.
Yes, and I saw that as well. I noticed that, and that's why I was worried, and that's why I'm asking this question, because the questions are not the same. They're not exactly the same. Outcome 1 on the ER and outcome 1 on the EDR is not always exactly the same.
Because if you're doing an alternative route on the outcome 1.1, they ask you the mathematical calculations that you got to use. How did you do it? How did you solve it? because you haven't got a
Yes,
B
yes.
and then you have to solve it. That's what it is.
Yes, yes. And another thing is, the reason why I'm saying on the ER reports I filled in from outcome 5 and not out from outcome 6 is because in the EDR report, educational development report, outcome 6 says refer to outcome 5 of the ER report. So I filled in
No, but
5 as
that's
well on
fine.
the ER.
Yeah, but if you
Is
see,
it 5?
if you look at it, it's interlinked there. So it's no problem.
Interlinked.
The people will pick it up. The assessors, they will pick it up
They will.
correct. So don't worry too much. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay. Good luck, eh?
Thank you.
Okay. Lungunsani, you were first. You can talk.
Okay, good evening, and thank you for the presentation once more. I was in a sitting, and then colleagues were advising with regards to ECSA registration. So one of the questions that were asked, which I wasn't so clear about, was one that an individual said that if I am applying for PR tech and during my interview, while they're going through my project that I have done, is it possible that they can deem you to have achieved professional technician and not professional technologist?
No,
Is an instance where that can
no, they cannot down you at all. Because remember, you're applying for professional technologist.
yes.
So if you're going for professional technologist and you do not say not make it, you do not cover all the outcomes, you couldn't demonstrate certain outcomes, you cannot go and say, okay, I've done, you must now downgrade me to a professional technician. No, because each one has got different questions and different standards. Because remember, under technician, you've got a well-defined engineering activity. Now, this is completely different compared to a broadly defined engineering activity. And then for engineer, it's a complex engineering activity. Now, if a guy applies for professional engineer with his BSc, he doesn't make it, but then he's got the alternative being downgraded to professional technologist. It's not going to, because it's different questions and different standards we have to look at. Because a technician, I usually say, for me to explain quickly, a technician, he gets given the problem to solve, and he uses guidelines. Technologist, he says, go to there and see what is the problem and solve it. So you solve it with the guidelines, but you also go out of the guidelines, you think out of the box. A professional, for engineers are complex. It's also say, there is a problem, solve it with your guidelines and that. So there's a very fine line between professional engineers and professional technologists. But it is with the technician, it's well defined there. It's so fine there. If you read through it, you'll see what I'm talking about. Okay.
All right. So in summary, my presentation does not determine the success of my registration. It's not based only on the presentation of the project.
Now, your presentation is there to prove one thing of outcome 5, how you present, and also we use it to evaluate you to see if it is your work, but we take it into conjunction with your engineering report also.
Okay.
So it's not just your presentation that decides your, what we call it, your outcome to become registered. because we use both your presentation and your engineering report. Your whole application we use. It's not just there we sit and wait for you to do a presentation when you get into professional review stage. We look at everything and we prepare for you to ask you certain questions. But sometimes if you do your presentation as a presentation, you cover all 11 outcomes, then we only do questions to determine, is it your work? Are you competent? Are you working at that competency level? Please don't think it is, what do you call it? I call it the Spanish Inquisition. It's not. We're not there to catch you out. We're there to find out, are you at that level? Are you going to be an asset to the engineering field in the level that you want to be, technician, technologist, or engineer? Are you going to be an asset to us, or are you going to be a liability? Now, what I mean by a liability is, are you going to cause harm to the public? Are you going to cause harm to the name of ECSA? Remember, ECSA is a brand name we carry. So when you become registered, you are taking, doesn't matter at what level you are carrying the brand for ECSA, and you're doing a lot of responsibility towards the industry. That's where the code of conduct is there. Okay. Does it help you?
It does. Thank you.
Chris, one other thing about the interviews that she asked about being downgraded to technician if you go for a technologist. The interviewers, the assessors are all technologists. It's a peer review system. So it's not technicians that are assessing you. Although they might think that you are at the level of technician, to be registered with ECSA as a technician, you must be interviewed and assessed by technicians. You cannot be assessed by technologists and be told that you're a technician. You cannot be assessed by engineers and told that you're a technologist. So it's a peer review system, and peer review means the people in that category that you have applied for. If you've applied for technologists, you get interviewed and assessed by technologists, not by anybody else, not by lawyers, not by doctors, not by anybody else, but other professional engineering technologists. Thank you.
Okay, I just want to clear up one thing. Everybody knows I'm a professional technician and a technologist. I've been asked to do technician interviews. I refuse, because you can get, when you're doing the interview, you can actually cause a problem. You might think the standards is the same for a technician and a technologist. It's not. So I don't do that. I just keep to my field as a technologist. So Johannes said correctly that it will not be a technician doing for a technologist, and neither an engineer doing for a technologist. We are peer review. We stay in our field of what we know. And another thing too is you will not get an electrical engineer doing interviews for civil. We are civil, and we are in the field that we are competent in to ask questions. Because you will see some people will only do structures, others will do a wider field of interviews of the experience they picked up over the years in the industry.
So if you're electrical, you'll be interviewed by electrical people and assessed by electrical technologists. If you're a chemical, it's chemical engineering technologists that assess you. So that is a peer review to the discipline as well.
Okay, before I go to the other people, there's our famous question. All right, I just want to go to the chat group, Battler's iPhone. Okay, you can register for candidate technician if you have a qualifications of foreign. No. you have to have a South African qualification. For a technician, you will have to have the required benchmark qualifications, which you will get on RO2 document at Appendix B, right at the back. Then Samsung SMA135F. Do PR registrations require design experience only? So I have only been on construction and want to register. This I've discussed, but I will tell you now very shortly what it means. If you're working in the field, you do not get put in a design office. It's not a smash. It's not a bad thing. What you do is what you do on site or in construction. You get drawings. You look at the design. You see it does not work. So you redesign it. That falls under designing to make the issue work. So remember that. Then after submitting the report, how long does it take ECSA to call candidates for interviews? Are interviews done virtually or were virtual only during COVID-19 era? Basically, they do most of 99% of the interviews are done virtual, but you can also request a face-to-face. Virtual is actually better in the sense, what I've explained to a lot of people, is we get a wider pool of interviewers, because if in the past you usually were bound near Gauteng, they were basically in the province of Gauteng. Now we're getting reviewers from the Free State. We're getting reviewers from Durban. We're getting reviewers from Cape Town. Everybody is doing, and we're getting a wider field, and it works better. Okay, now who was first? I think it was KH, and then it's Dawani, and after that will be Winnie. Okay, KH.
Good evening, Chris and colleagues.
You
mentioned that when you are invited for appraisal interview, they will tell you specific outcomes that you didn't cover very well. So what I want to know is that if there's outcome 1, 2, 3, are they going to ask me questions on those 3 outcomes only, or even the TERs?
No, only those 3 outcomes. You have to explain those 3 outcomes. Sana, you got outcome 1, 2, and 3 is what you said. You go to your document, you look at your not your TER, you look at your engineering report, you see what did you write there, you compare it to what is the requirements in RO2 and RO8, and you prepare and you say, okay, I see what I've done here. I made some mistake here. I didn't discuss this well. You prepare it. And those are the only 3 outcomes that will be asked in your experience interview. If you've got 5 outcomes to explain, that's only those. We don't ask further than that. Unless, suddenly you got 3 outcomes or 4 outcomes. And we do the interview and we realize this is not your work, then we'll ask all outcomes. But it's a very, very rare. Okay. Does it answer your question?
Right, thank you. Yes.
Okay. Tarwani, unmute yourself. Tarwani.
How are you? How are you?
All right, I can't complain in yourself.
Okay, thanks, guys. Thanks for the opportunity. Man, I've just got a few questions here. I just submitted my application for the professional technician. I'm gonna use the NATED studies to do that. They advised me to do that actually. So what I've done is that I got my GCC via the NATED studies. So I applied for the professional technician. So I got the report from the ECSA that they need the outstanding document, which is the initial development report that is not completed. So I'm just I'm battling with how to fill actually on what they are looking for on the initial development report. Because on this form,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, I know it. Okay, we call that's initial development report. That is equal to your CPD. Now, it's not necessary that you have to have CPD points there. You can also discuss there on external studies that you've done.
Okay.
Your company has given you internal house courses to do. You write it all down there. So it's
Oh,
not necessary to have a CPD recognized course there. Only when you later on, when you do become registered, that starts coming into play. Because there might be courses that you've done that help you, like you have to have a computer course, you could have done an in-house training on, for instance, AutoCAD, but it's not
yes.
accredited. That you write down there and you tell how many hours you spent there, and the company will give you a certificate or some other recognition to say, yes, you did that, and you fill that in under management and under design experience or whatever. They got 3 categories. I can't remember now, but then you just fill in those courses that you've done. That is what they're looking for. You most probably send it in with nothing in. Then we become a bit wary about that. Okay.
Okay.
If you do a management course by the SACP, KP, those guys there, that you can also put in, even if it's not recognized, the project management course, not recognized as a CPD points, but you've done it and you show you've done it. That's fine. It shows that you understand the continuous learning, continuous development plan, learning for yourself, because we don't stand still in one stage. We learn continuously. Okay. Does that answer your question?
Yes, no, I'm fine. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Okay, it's a pleasure. Okay, Winnie, you can come in.
Good evening, everyone that has joined. And thank you so much, Mr. Maynard and Mr. Johan, for the presentation. Actually, my question is gonna go back to the point that you mentioned, that, sometimes the engineering report, we compile it maybe 6 months, prior to the interview, or even longer than that. And then when you get to the interview, you find that there's actually a current project that's more complex, maybe, that you might want to bring up, but you didn't write about it in your report or include it. So what I wanted to ask is it fine in that interview to just discuss, the contents and the design of the current project, although you didn't, include it in your report in writing? Will that suffice? Maybe
okay, let me just remember what I said. Your engineering report is not cast in stone. So when you do your presentation, you can use your latest project, because we do understand what happens is at that stage when you were filling in your document, you had this project looked fine, or this looked fine for outcome 1, 2, 3, 9, and 10. And 6, 7 months later, you got another project that you've just completed, but it covers it better. You're allowed to. Nothing stops you from doing that, Winnie.
No, thank you. Thank you, sir.
So please, guys, everybody, if you got a better project from the time that you filled in your document, you're allowed to discuss that new project. You just say, this is a new project. I feel it is more appropriate. It will be easier to discuss, because it covers all the outcomes that I'm requiring. And you're allowed to, because we don't hold it against you. We've had a lot of applicants that come and they do the interview and they haven't come, they completely different from what they've discussed in the engineering report. They've got a new project, which is 100%, so it doesn't stop you. Okay, I see. If you only worked, all right. After submitting the report, how long does it take ECSA to call candidate for interviews? Are interviews done visually? Okay, we've discussed that, but the interview, what I'm saying, how long it takes, it depends on how many people are available, the reviewers or the interviewers. What we do is we do this on a voluntary basis. So we do not work for ECSA at all. We are trained, but we do this on a voluntary basis. So like I'm doing here tonight, I do it on a voluntary basis. I do not get paid. We do it because it's a peer review. As we don't work for ECSA, we do get training on the certain, every year we have to go to the courses, updating courses on the assessment, the moderation, and the interview and the reviews to make sure that we do understand if there's any changes in the system. And also what happens is we discuss certain items that we picked up, and that gets also taken into account to do the new revision of RO8 and RO2. Okay, then if you only worked in the design office and have not done construction monitoring or worked on site, would that be a problem for registering as an engineer? Okay, first things first, you must ask that you go a bit on site, that you understand the social and the environmental issues, and go make sure that you understand what's going on site. Because what happens is sometimes if you just, especially I find with structural engineers, especially the technologists, they do outcome 1, 2, 3, 9, and 10 perfectly. But when it comes to the other outcomes, they have a problem. But read through that and make sure that you do cover those. If you haven't done a lot of work on site, but you understand how it works on site, for instance, social and cultural and environmental, you speak to your colleagues, you read about it, you discuss it. We want to see, do you understand? And also on the legal side too. Okay, I see KH says, are we allowed to withdraw the application during the process after you have attended the EA? No. You can, but it won't look good for you. Okay. It's not advisable.
Any other questions?
I see Peter says, if you are Peter Shumba, if you are registered engineer at PR level in the neighboring countries with over 20 years engineering experience at senior management level, are you required to submit an engineering report to register with ECSA? Yes, you have to. Unless there is what we call it, agreement between the two countries, but you still have to submit the engineering report to ECSA, because there's some accords that is required that there's if you're on the what you call it, the Dublin Accord, what are all the accords there, Johanna? I can't remember anymore.
The Washington Accord for Professional Engineers.
And the Washington Accord. Because the Washington Accord is for professional engineers, am I correct?
Yeah, but that is only for the educational part. Then there's the other accord, yes, for the professional registration part. But you start with the Washington Accord for Engineers, the Sydney Accord for Technologists, and the Dublin Accord for Technicians to cover the.
Yes, and I see there is a what you call it, not a accord, there is an agreement between Ireland and South Africa on technicians and technologists. But just remember one thing, it's on the educational, that's right what Johan says, but you must also be able to prove that you understand the South African legal side and the legal system, and also the cultural system and the social and the environmental for our system. So you have to show that also, competency in that. Okay, must sample calculations be attached to the report, and photographs for the outcomes or can above be included in the presentation. You can, in your annexes, you can put your calculations, but you don't put the whole calculation, just sample calculations, and photographs, you do it in your, in your report. Remember, it doesn't matter what you're applying, which one. It's only 50 pages. If you make it 200-300 pages, you know, we do this after work. We've worked, and then we go through these documents. If it's 200-300 pages, it gets very tiring. It takes a long time for us. So we do this on a not freelance, we do it on a voluntary basis, as I said. So we get asked to do these, and we go through these documents. But if it's 200-300 pages, the people are tired, and they can make a mistake or they can't, but it gets very tiring. So stick to the 50 pages. You can add your photos there, and you can add your calculation sample ones. But when you're doing your presentation, it's nice to do the outcomes and maybe add 1 or 2 little photos or calculation examples on the right-hand side of your presentation that makes it look more. Remember, when you're doing your presentation, it must be there to capture the audience. Although it's 3 reviewers, you're there to capture the audience with your knowledge and to show your competency. Okay.
There's a question in the chat. Are there any countries in Africa that ECSA share mutual recognition with for professional registration? Well, I answered there that I don't know of any. Chris, do you know?
No, there's nothing that I know of. I know for a fact ECSA is starting to talk to Botswana, Namibia, and I think they're also talking to Angola. They are busy now getting to go into the countries of Africa to get the mutual there, to help out there, to get the same standard worldwide now too. Because I know I see them, they did talk, they had the other day, they went to Botswana to talk to the Botswanan guys that are doing education there too. And the Botswana engineers also. And I think they went to Angola also, and also in Namibia. Okay, this David says, if you have worked as a technician for 3 years since graduation, but you have a degree qualification, can I register as a PRN? Is that a BSc degree or is it a BTech? Now, I don't know if it's a BSc Eng, in civil or in mechanical. You'll have to look at your, to see if you can't get that further up your responsibility, and make sure that you're getting to the right level of registration. You must talk to your employer and ask them to give you the correct experience. That's about all I can tell you, because I see it does happen a lot. People think they are on the right level of experience, but then when you start assessing them, then you find that they do not cover the required outcomes at the correct level. It was directed to me directly, so
Oh, okay.
and so I submitted my report to PR Tech Eng. However, I'm currently doing my MSc in engineering in civil. Will I be able to register as a PRI Eng at the later stage should I wish? So he's doing a master's in engineering in civil, am I correct?
Yeah. Chris, the question here is, what masters are you doing? The usual masters is not recognized by ECSA for registration as PR Eng. What they require is, if you have a BTech, for instance, you now do a BTech honors, the BEng Tech honors, so that you can do the masters, the professional masters that they require. This, and I know that some of the universities of technology are starting to introduce those professional masters. I think TUT will be doing it. I think UJ will be doing it, and some of the others. I'm not sure which. But the point is that the ordinary masters that you would be doing at Wits or Tukkies or Stellenbosch or Cape Town, ECSA doesn't recognize that for registration as a professional engineer. We might not agree with them, but unfortunately they make the rules, and so even the alternate route, they're not very keen to register people for professional engineer on the alternate route. I've often said that route is described in the Bible in St. Matthew, where it said, the road is narrow and the gate is small, and there are very few that find it.
Yeah, that is, this is an old story that has been going on for years.
I see Gusty's got a hand up again, Chris.
Yes, that's good. Gusty?
Thank you. Yes, thank you so much. Sorry for the small delay. I just wanted to ask another question about the cover page for my application. What information should I not leave out on there?
What cover page? You mean just above, after your application, before your application, you can just write your name and what you're applying for and in what field. If you say you want to apply for professional technologist, then you say civil or mechanical. You say engineering,
Okay.
you say your name, your full names, and I don't tell the people to put their ID numbers on because of the, what we call it, of the POPI Act. People will take it and try and use it. So you can put your full names there, and you just say application for engineering technologist, PR technologist, and then you say which field. Is it mechanical, electrical? Is it heavy electrical, light electrical? It helps the guys to, the administrators to start already organizing people to do the interview, because I won't do electrical because I'm not electrical, I'm civil. And I won't go and do chemical because I'm not qualified to answer, to question the people. Because if I do chemical, I think it will be a bit of a major explosion, worse than the atom bomb when I'm finished.
Okay.
Because you see, that's not my field. And that's where the ethics comes in, under the code of conduct.
Correct, yes.
And don't be shy to say, I don't know that. Because you might get questions. You're doing, for instance, you're specializing in, for instance, in the road, in seals. And the person there will be asking you, okay, you know seals and that. Okay, let's talk about the 3-story building. How would you calculate? Then you will say, yes, but this is the dead loads, live loads, and that. Then it will start questioning you. Then we start answering. There's no problem to say, yes, I understand the basics, but it's not my field of expertise. Like Johannes he does rails. I do municipal services with other fields, but rails is not my expertise. I won't go and design the rails at all because it's not my expertise. I know the basics, but I will not touch it. Okay.
Correct, yes. There's one last question, sorry. About the referees. I think I asked you earlier on about 2 of my referees are in remote places where there's no postnet, and you said it's okay for him to email the referee report to
That's
engineer at ECSA.
Yes, that's
Is that
correct.
where I also send my engineer? Okay. Is that
Application.
where I also send my application form as well?
That's correct, yes. And then
Thank
what
you
you
so
can
much.
do is you can say, I will send the hard copy later, which is fine.
Okay. Is that optional or compulsory?
Beg your pardon?
The hard copy. Is the hard copy compulsory?
It's not really, but it's preferably better because you know what happens is a lot of people causing fraud. And so if you do, because remember, you got a lot of documents that you have to be commissioned, by commissioner of oath. So you can send it later to them. You say, here's my application, and then you would like to send the hard copy, and they will tell you yes or no if they want it or not. But usually it's better to send the hard copy.
Okay. And will ECSA let me know that they received it? Will they reply to my email that
Yes,
they've
you will
received
get
it, or must I
a
just
document to
hope and
say,
pray?
no, they will say to you, yes, I have received it. We are going through your application. That will be an email sent to you.
Okay, that's good news. Okay.
So that's what
Thank
they
you so
require
much.
to do. Okay, thanks.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you so much.
Okay, Gusty.
Hey,
Tubela?
guys. Oh,
Tubela?
there's some more questions.
Yeah, Tubela.
Hi. Yes, hi, Chris. Hi, Johan. Thank you for the opportunity and hi to everyone. Please help me if I heard correctly. Did you say you don't recognize professional masters for PR and registration?
Yes, if it's not accredited by a University of Technology that has been assessed by ECSA.
Okay, let's be specific. UCT, from UCT.
Yeah, you can be specific.
Yeah.
A professional master's from UCT, the masters that they do is not recognized if you have a BTech.
Yes, sir.
Now done a master's at UCT. You want to register as a professional engineer. They're not going to recognize it. If you have a BEng from another university, then that can be recognized.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Is that clear?
Yes, it's clear. Thank you.
So where did you do your undergraduate courses? Did you do a BTech or what did you do?
I did a BEng in India.
Oh no, then that master's at UCT will be recognized.
Okay. There's just one thing. before you do your degree that you did in India,
Yes,
you
sir.
have to get it assessed by ECSA, please.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm aware of that one.
Yeah,
Yeah, get it assessed now and tell them you wanted to, and you're busy with this. Would it be sufficed for you to do your application for PRN?
At the moment.
Yes.
Mm, no, I don't think I meet all the requirements. Like my responsibilities are not at the PR.
No. It doesn't have to apply. I'd say just get your degree from India
Okay,
assessed by
assessed.
ECSA alone to say at what level are you on.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Understood.
There is an application they will give you, because I've had a lot of the applicants, they've done foreign degrees, they get it assessed, and then 2, 3, 4 years later, they do application in that field,
Okay.
in that
Okay.
level they want to go. So please just get that first assessed there.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
All right, it's a pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. It was nice having you. I have recorded this one, so it's not like the other one that we missed somehow, because other people were recording. We were under the impression that it was recorded, and it wasn't on my side. So thank you, everybody, from IPET, Institute of Professional Engineering Technologists, with compliments. It was nice having you, and join IPET, because IPET is the organization that looks after professional engineering technologists and graduate engineering technologists. We are planning to do a session with ECSA on the 25th of January on identification of engineering work. It will probably be a whole day session. I have spoken to ECSA, and we will be doing it in collaboration with them. We will be streaming it from ECSA's offices, and we'll be getting people in who talk about their experience with the identification of engineering work. So if you've had some bad experiences with idea of work, please contact me and tell me about it. We need some examples to highlight, or if you had good experience, also give me the examples. Thank you, everybody, and I don't think we're not going to have another session before the end of the year, Chris.
I don't think so, because we're now near the end of the year and everybody is working. I see we went up to 58. I'm very happy about that.
No, we were in the 70s.
Oh, also in 70s. I didn't look at how many people while I was doing. To everybody, we won't be having another session this year, but to everybody, have a Merry Christmas, prosperous New Year for next year, and hopefully our next year will be better than this year. And if you're on the roads, drive safely.